It's Fred back on the George Elmy. Today we're going to let you have a quick look at how we've progressed with the floors and various fittings that have been recovered from a boat at the Isle of Skye, and it's going onto this vessel. First of all, down on the floor here, there's two holes in here, and these are to enable them to get access to the propeller while they're at sea. If they get a rope tangled around the propeller, there's one that's actually in place there. If you have a look down the hole, you'd be able to see just how it works, where they can see the propeller shaft down there. When they're at sea, these plates have to drop in. We've had to modify this one quite a bit because it's off a different type of vessel. We've managed to come up with something to make them fit. These drop in here like so, and then the buttons go in to lock them down, so they'll be into there. So when they're at sea, there's not a cavity above the propeller. It's the block on the bottom is fit to the hull. So if you had a big open tube, it would create a sound box and give you a load of vibration and echo and amplify the noise, and it would sound absolutely terrible. So that hole is the same shape as the hull on the underside. So that's another job done. There's two vents fit in the back end here. These the shape on the bottom of them, there's a big cork ball in there. So if the vessel did turn over, the water pressure would push the ball up against the side of the inside of it and stop any water going through. And then when it was back the right way, the ball would fall into its own place. Also recovered from the Isle of Skye is this steering unit. We'll have this in place now and bolted onto the vessel. It's a very old piece of brasswork. There's an awful lot of skill in the making of it. And the inside of it is a bit over-engineered, but it's absolutely a perfect system for what they had. I'll just get that up, how it works. And there's a shaft will come off this underneath here, and that turns. There's a point here which is the end of the shaft, which then turns this cog, which then manoeuvres this, and that end here continues down, and that is your rudder shaft. So that's a lovely piece of engineering inside. When we're doing the various metalwork and stuff, and we need to get some new paper gaskets, the style then was to use paper gaskets, not rubber, and to get any decent paper gasket now is hard, but one of the best and the most used are old chart papers. The quality of the paper is absolutely superb, and it's ideal for gaskets. So on this one we've used quite a bit of the Balearic Straits. There's all bits of Borneo and everything has gone on this boat. So we do utilise as much as we can availability of materials, and old charts, Admiralty issue, no longer used, are absolutely ideal for the job. So there's another little tip if anybody's looking for a bit of gasket. Down here, this box section here, these bulkheads have been replaced. They were a bit damaged. Now, that was at one time a watertight ballast box, which they could take extra water on board for more stability. So this is a stern tube for the propeller shaft. The shaft is through inside of that. And then inside of that, there's another tube there, which is through the ballast box to make that watertight for the tube to pass through. It's a bit of a complicated system, but it's worked well, and it's to what their specifications were. But it's the same on either side. This is the other side of your stern tube. There's a grease pipe to go on here. That will get full of grease. It'll fill the whole tube up. There's a return pipe through the A-frame, and then that comes back into a telltale valve on this end, so they know it's fully packed with grease. So there's one couple in there ready to fit on, and there's one coupling already being fit. We've now progressed on very well with the deck. The lads have been painting. This gives you some idea of what the deck it's all going to get painted, unfortunately. It's a lovely wood, pity to paint it, but that's what the specie is. This is the rubber after it's all been put in. This is where all the screw holes have been filled. Again, we've used our filler from East Coast Fibreglass Supplies. Very good filler, the same as what we've used on the hull. On the other side, all this has been sanded and painted, a couple of primer and a flattener gloss. And we have a set of number stamps, and I don't know if you can work that one out, but that's after midships 2. So we know every board is stamped forward, aft, port, starboard, whatever it is for where it goes, so it gives you a good indication of where each board's going to go. Some people paint them on, some people carve them in, but the number stamps keeps everything nice and uniform and does a good job. If we look on this side of the boat, we've been progressing with the rubbers on the outside, which is one of the next big jobs. You have to fit a pad block on the outside. These are the pads, and then you fasten your pads on, one bolt at the bottom, one bolt at the top. Then when we put our rails on top of the pads, you go your opposite, top and bottom. So if you keep to that system, you know you shouldn't hit another bolt. So that's all done now. If we have a look on the outside of the vessel, we'll show you what timber we've put on there. Right, we're now on the outside of the boat on the starboard side, just off forward. The pads that you can see on here correspond with the pads that we're showing you on the inside. Now this is the size of the timber for the pad. Now they get bolted on. A good way to do it is to put your size on and put a line of masking tape on right along, and then your pads fit in between the masking tape, and then you take them off when you're finished. After we've got all our pads on, we'll give them a coat of primer, because they'll not be in a situation where they can get another coat of paint. Again, we insist on having coats of paint on between each layer of wood, so we know we shouldn't have any problems. I was saying about our pads, how they fit on. This is a pad behind, a spare. 2 bolts in there, one top, one bottom. Now once they're on, we put a chalk mark on top and bottom. That then lets we know where the bolts are, just in case you have to change one around on the system. Now after that's on there, this is what size of our timber for the top, which will fit on there. So that's giving you a section of what that rail is going to be. So when that goes on top of your pad, again, the bolts in this are then on the opposite, so we know we'll finish up 4 bolts through there. We're not going to come into any conflict when we're drilling. So they go all the way around the boat. Then when we're cramping these on, normal size cramps, but with these big rails they're quite heavy, so we'll have to go upgrade a little bit. And there's not many of these in B&Q, but we have a few. Fortunately, this is the size of the G-cramp I have to use, because we need the depth in the throat for to get at the job. They've been modified for to try and help it out a little bit for depth. Save we're putting too much packing on, we've just welded a pad on there. When we're finished, we can just knock that off. But it saves you having to hold a pad all the time and getting a mark on the cramp. So they would have been lifted on over the top of there and onto there like that for to hold the rail. We're a bit on the chunky side, but they do the job. Here is one of the joints. We've steam bent that round from forward, we'll come to there, do the same aft, and then we'll fit a midship section in here. A few extra bolts are in there because that is where our scarf is. Now when this is finished, there'll be another shorter bit of timber which goes on top, a half round, and that's screwed on and filled in, and that'll cover all the bolts. So more or less, not thinner than that, but it would cover everything up. A couple of coats of primer, flat, and then red. Again, the paint has been supplied by Hempel Paints from Sunderland, absolutely first class. This blue, again, it doesn't look right, but because we've wet and dried it all down prior to putting the chocks on, just to make it easier, instead of getting in and knocking our hands, we'll give it a good sand down prior to the chocks fitting on. So that's sanded off, ready for another dress. All these chalk marks will come off. Right, well, we're upstairs at the woodworking part of the shop. This is a sample of a rubber that came from the Sky boat, and just to give you some idea of what it was like. A little bit battered and bruised, but these were your chocks that were on. That was the shape of the chock with the timber outside, and then there's this cover piece, as I say, which is screwed on all the way around. That'll be dressed in, fade up, filled in. You'll not be able to see anything. It'll look like one piece of timber when the job's done. So what we'll have is our chock from to the hull, then my piece of timber which goes on top, and we're just busy machining this now. Unfortunately, that is as close as we can get it with a machine. The rest is all going to be hand planing, and that's going to go onto there as a cover, and then when it's on, the hand plane will come out onto there, and that'll give you a round. Our next major move is, after these top rails are painted, there's 2 bulkheads to go in, bit repairs to the deck, then we're going to have the engines arriving one at a time. We'll fit one on one side to its place, then we shall move that across and fit it to the other side. It's just like anything else, we've just got to take your time and plod on as much as you can, and we are starting to get to a stage now where it's getting paint on a bit more and it's really starting to look good.